Hello, welcome to our unique learning system language arts lesson. My name is Charlotte Lucas. I am an autism low incidence mentor teacher with Richmond Public Schools, and I'm so happy to be able to work with you today. The name of our book today is Echoes Everywhere. First, we'll do a picture walk. We will discuss the author's purpose. We'll read the book to you. We'll discuss some story elements. We'll determine if the book is fiction or nonfiction, and we will answer questions related to the text. And our focus for today is there a problem in this story? And if there is a problem, what's the solution? All right, we have a lot to do, so let's get started. The name of our story is Echoes Everywhere. And in this book, we have some vocabulary words that we want to explore. And our vocabulary words for today are reflect, absorb, and echo. All right. But instead of me giving you the vocabulary words and giving you the definition, we're going to discover the vocabulary words in our book and we'll see if the book gives us the definition. So let's first do a picture walk of the book so that we can get an idea of what the book is about. All right, so our picture walk echoes everywhere. And here, if we look at the picture on the front, this person is saying hello, and then there's hello, hello, hello off in the distance. I wonder what that means. What does that mean? All right, and here we have someone clapping their hands, and we see when we see these uh, 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 lines around the hands, we know that that means that there is sound. And we notice that our director, Ms. Thomas, is reflecting on sound, and then here we have that hello, hello, hello again. I wonder what does that mean? All right, and here is Miss Thomas again. She's at the theater. Our story is taking place at the theater, and here we have some sound, and we see the sound is moving in that direction, and then it's bouncing back in that direction. That has to have something to do with what our story is about today. And we see a person is dropping a ball onto a soft surface, and the ball is not bouncing, it's just flopping over. That's a demonstration of some type of word that probably is in the story. And then we see that we have curtains because we're in the stage, and someone is pulling this curtains back for a reason. And we have one of our characters, I believe this is Kara. She's on the stage and she is using her voice to sing into the microphone. All right, and then we have our other characters who are in the story. That's Gavin and Dale, and they are reflecting on sound from our hands and this hello, hello, hello that's happening in our story. And that will be a nice picture walk of our story. Well, we've done a picture walk. Let's see what types of questions that we'll have to answer when we come back. If we look at our questions first, we'll have a good idea of what to think about as we read. So we'll read the questions first, give us an idea that will give us a purpose for reading. Some of the questions that will be answered are, what is this chapter about? Whenever you're reading, you really do want to keep that in your head. What is this about? What is this all about? Okay. And number two, what does Mrs. Thomas clap? What does Mrs. Thomas clap? Number three, what does Gavin hear? What does Gavin hear? Number four, what did the curtain do to the sound waves? What did the curtain do to the sound waves? And our last question, what is important to know about this chapter? That's another question that is very important to keep. What is important to know about this chapter, or sometimes just about the book? Those are the types of questions we need to keep in our head. And those are the types of questions that we want to go back to. We know we'll be answering those at the end. So let's see if we can take ourselves back to the previous book, because we have already we've already read uh, 2 or 3 chapters in this book. So let's take a moment to summarize what the previous chapters were about. And when you summarize, you give a really quick thought on what the other stories were about. We don't give you all the details. We don't tell you everything that everybody said. We just give you an idea of what the story is about. We'll mention the setting, we'll mention the characters, but we're not going to tell you everything that's happening. We're just going to give you a quick recap of what the story is about. So, in our previous chapters, to summarize, we met the characters, Gavin, Kara, Dale, and Mrs. Thomas. The students are going to be in a play. Mrs. Thomas is the director of the play, and this story takes place in a theater. Miss Thomas has been teaching the students about how important sound and light are to the theater. And the students have received their parts and responsibilities for backstage in the previous chapters. And now they're back at the theater once again. So we gave a quick summary of what the story is about. We've caught up. We kind of know what's going on. And now let's go ahead on and read the book. When we get back to the book, let's see. We'll start at the beginning. Echoes everywhere. I need to make this a little bit smaller so that we can read all the words that are in the book, and we'll be able to see all the words. Okay, our story is chapter 5, Echoes Everywhere. We've already had a summary, so we know a little bit about what happened previously. All right, the next day at practice, Kara, Gavin, and Dale hear sounds all around them. There are sound waves everywhere. They hear music playing. They hear hammers and saws as students build scenery. Mrs. Thomas claps her hands 3 times. The students hear the sound of her hands clapping. After Miss Thomas stops clapping, Gavin thinks he hears an echo. It sounds like extra claps. Would hearing an echo be a problem in the play? Asked Gavin. Yes, an echo would be a problem, says Mrs. Thomas. An echo happens when sound waves reflect or bounce off of something. So here we have some of our vocabulary words being answered. One of our vocabulary words was echo. So it says an echo happens when sound waves reflect or bounce off of something. All right, so an echo happens when sound bounces off of something. And here again, if you hear an echo, is you hear the same thing you just said again. So that's the hello, hello, hello. That's what an echo is. And then the word reflect. The word reflect means to bounce off of. So 2 of our vocabulary words have been defined. That's excellent. And it was defined in the text. When I clapped my hands, the sound waves moved through the air. Sound waves can reflect off of objects that are smooth and hard. The sound waves from my claps bounced off the walls or stage. We hear the sound again. This is an echo, says Mrs. Thomas. Again, we have a definition of our words. We hear the sound again. This is an echo. Not all sound waves can reflect off of things, says Mrs. Thomas. Some things can absorb the sound waves. When sound waves hit something soft, they are absorbed. It's like dropping a ball on a pillow. It will not bounce back up. The sound will not echo. And that's another one of our words for today, our vocabulary words. It would be absorb. The word absorb. So in the text, we find that when waves hit something soft, they are absorbed. It will not bounce back. So sounds will be absorbed. Excellent. The curtains are soft, says Gavin. I think they will absorb the sound waves. Kevin closes the curtains. Mrs. Thomas claps her hands again. The sound does not echo. The soft curtain absorbs the sound waves. Curtains on the stage can help absorb the sound so there is no echo. Now, earlier we learned as we were reading before we move on, because I think we have a problem. We found that Mrs. Thomas, it sounds like extra claps. Would hearing an echo be a problem in the play? They walked onto the stage. They heard a lot of extra noise, and they said that this noise, this echo, would be a problem. So, if there's a problem in the story, we need to find out if there's a solution to the problem. The problem was there was an echo. Did we get a solution to the problem? Well, here we find that the curtains are soft, says Gavin. I think they will absorb the sound waves. Gavin closes the curtains. Mrs. Thomas claps her hands again. The sound does not echo. And there we have the problem. The problem was the sound was hitting the wall and bouncing back in the form of an echo. To stop the sound, they closed the curtain. The curtain is soft, and the curtain absorbed the sound, and therefore there was no echo. The soft curtain absorbs the sound waves. Curtains on the stage can help absorb the sound, so there is no echo. Problem solved. Mrs. Thomas talks about different sounds they will hear during the play. Some students will make sounds using instruments. Some students will be singing or talking. Students will also be moving scenery and props backstage. Some sounds will need to be loud. Other sounds will need to be quiet. We learned that sound waves can be reflected, said Gavin. This makes an echo. Sound waves can also be absorbed. We have to think about which sounds we want people to hear during the play. That's right, said Mrs. Thomas. Tomorrow we will practice for the play. All right, that turned out to be a very excellent story. We had a problem in that story. The problem was what? The problem was the echo. We do not want to hear an echo because the echo will bounce around. That'll be too much noise, and the people in the audience will not understand what's going on. So, if they had the problem, they solved the problem. How did they solve it? They shut the curtains. The curtains are soft, it absorbed the sound, and we don't have a lot of sounds bouncing around the stage. Excellent, excellent. Well, let's see if we can answer some questions. You know that once we have read our story, we knew we had some questions to answer. Let's see what a few of the questions are. I'm going to make this bigger so that we can read it really nicely. It says, what is this chapter? What is this chapter about? Is this chapter about sound waves? Is it about wars? Or is it about lights? All right, let's think. Remember, when you're reading, sometimes some answers some of the multiple choice questions are just not necessary. We can slash them because we don't need them. They don't fit. So which one of these do you think don't fit? What is this chapter about? Sound waves, wars, or lights? Right quick, we can tell wars is one of the answers we can slash and trash because we will not need it. So our possible answers would be sound waves or lights. Well, we already have a red bar around that one, a red frame, because Mrs. Lucas accidentally touched it. So the answer would be sound waves. What is this chapter about? Sound waves. That's what the whole theme through all of the pages, we talked about sound waves. Very nice. Okay. What does Mrs. Thomas clap? What does Mrs. Thomas clap? Does she clap her elbows? Does she clap her hands? Does she clap her feet? Oh my. This is extremely obvious to all of us. We can slash and trash two of these because none of it was mentioned in the story. Does Mrs. Thomas clap her elbows? Oh, no, she does not. That we can slash and trash. Does Mrs. Thomas clap her feet? I don't even know if that's possible. So we are going to slash and trash that one, and that leaves us with one possible answer. What does Mrs. Thomas clap? She claps her hands. Very nice. What does Gavin hear? What does Gavin hear? Now we remember, what does he hear in this story? Does he hear a radio? Does he hear an echo? Does he hear a TV? We know there was no TV on this in this story at all, so we're going to slash and trash that one. So the other two possible answers are radio and echo. And this story was really about echoes, wasn't it? So when what he hears is B, an echo. Excellent. We picked the best answer of the two. Number 4, what did the curtain do to the sound waves? What did the curtain do to the sound waves? And remember, the curtain was soft, and that was a part of our vocabulary words. This curtain was soft, and it did what? It colored the curtain, it moved the sound waves, absorb the sound waves. What did the curtain do to the sound waves? Did it color it, move it, or absorb it? Think about it. It was a very important part of the solution to our problem in the story today. All right, we know for sure it didn't color it because we did not see anyone coloring or hear about anyone coloring in that story. We're going to slash and trash that answer. So did it move it or absorb it? The curtain did what? It absorbed it. Excellent, excellent. You were paying attention. Very nice. What is important to know about this chapter? What are our possibilities? Is it important to know that sound is not important in a play? Sound waves can be reflected or absorbed. The students can't hear Miss Thomas's clap. What is important to know about this chapter? Let's see if we can slash and trash something. Sound is not important in a play. Well, we know that that is absolutely a no-no. Sound is important in a play. How will we hear the actors talking? How will we hear the music? Sound is very important. So we're going to slash A. It says sound is not important. Take it out. We know that that is not a possibility. What is important to know about this chapter? Sound waves can be reflected or absorbed. The students can't hear Mrs. Thomas's clap. Well, they did hear Mrs. Thomas's clap, so we figured that B is the best answer. Sound waves can be reflected or absorbed, and that's 2 of our vocabulary words. Excellent. You did an excellent job with that. All right. Now, we've gone back and we have talked about this story. We have answered the questions. We've read the story. But one of the things that we always want to try and stop and figure out, what was the author's purpose for writing this story? Echoes everywhere. What was his purpose? And you know, when we talk about the author's purpose, we go and get our pie, don't we? We get our pie, and pie is 3 reasons why an author would write a story. He would write it to P, persuade you, I, inform you, or E, entertain you. We're reading this story, and I'm telling you, we have some good information that we're getting about lighting and sound. And in this particular chapter, sound. He wasn't trying to persuade us because the author wasn't trying to get us to do something that he believed in. He wasn't trying to change our mind in any way. So he wasn't trying to persuade us. Entertain us. When you think about being entertained, you think about some type of emotional response to the story. We were looking at the story, we didn't feel like laughing, we didn't feel like crying, we didn't get scared. We were a little concerned when we heard about the fact that there were echoes on the stage. But we didn't have much emotion, so we don't think the author was trying to entertain us. But in this story, we got a whole lot of information about sound and echoes and reflection and how sound is absorbed. So we're going to conclude that the author was trying to inform us. The author's purpose, we feel, we've concluded, is that he's trying to inform us about something. And while we're at it, let's see if we can figure out what kind of text was this. Was this a fiction or a nonfiction text? Now, that gets a little shaky with the type of story that we've been reading lately. Because in this story, in this chapter, there was a story being told. There was a beginning, a middle, and an end. There was a problem and a solution. But this story was full of facts, fact talk, stuff we needed to learn, lots of photos and graphs, lots of things for us to look at. This was kind of a mixture of both. It was a mixture of fiction, where the story isn't really real, and it was a mixture of nonfiction, where we received a lot of facts. When we have a story that is a nonfiction story full of facts, but it's told in a story form, that is called a narrative nonfiction. That's new for us. We're learning this. We're in middle school. We can learn something new about fiction and nonfiction. And what we're learning is that this is a what? A narrative nonfiction story. That's excellent. Excellent. So let's recap. Let's go back and see if we did everything that we said we were going to do today. We did our picture walk. We discussed the author's purpose. We found our story elements. We did fiction and nonfiction. We made that distinction. And in this story today, our focus was problem and solution. Was there a problem in this story? You bet there was a problem. Those echoes on that stage were not going to be acceptable, and they needed to find a solution to echoes on the stage. And did they find a solution? Yes, they did. It was very simple. What did they do? They just closed the curtains. The curtains were soft, it absorbed the sound, and the echoes were gone. Excellent, guys and girls. You did a very wonderful job today. I look forward to working with you again. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye now.